what you're doing. So I
Welcome again to Conversations with Tony Mobley. Yes, we're back. And this is episode 13 of Conversation with Tony Mobley. This is 13 of 2025. We have many episodes that we want you to check out. But tonight we have Mr. John Duhring here with me today. And we first want to say we are powered by Mimo Live. Conversation with Tony Mobley is powered by Mimo Live, and we have a guest technologist cutting the show tonight, Mr. Aaron Husledge. We want to thank him so much for participating with us tonight. We also want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley. Conversation with Tony Mobley can be seen on the YouTube channel as well as conversationwithtonymobley.com. In the YouTube chat, there is a link, and the link is called Makana, and it's courtesy of Alex Lindsay of 090. And what you can do with that link, you can ask questions. You can ask questions of John tonight, and those questions can be voted up and down so that the higher vote gets make sure that the question gets in. If you don't want to do that, that's fine. You can ask your questions in the YouTube chat. And so we want to thank everyone again for being here. And if you're not live, we want you to actually watch this on the rerun, and we hope that you enjoy or glean something that is beneficial and helpful from this conversation. And we are now going to turn to Mr. John Duhring, who I'm excited to have on our show today because he has been prolific in sharing what CueCam Presenter can do. And so I made a point of doing some YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn messages about John being on with me today so that we could get into what he has to share. So first, let me say welcome, John Duhring, for being here with me. And I want to thank your family for allowing you to share this time with me. And I just wanted you to say hello.
Well, hello. And Tony, it's an honor to be here. And I wanted to first start by thanking you for doing what you're doing. I mean, I think your method of just being real is what we need today in media in general. And I think the tools that we have in front of us allow us to do that And I'd be happy to show how I'm using CueCam. And what I thought when you invited me on, I went, oh no, what do I talk about? And so I decided that I go to LinkedIn and look at my profile, say, who am I? Right, to the outer world. And I copied it. And then I created slides out of it. And so what I'll do is use CueCam to go through, say, my career after college. But first, before I do that, let me see, I'm going to bring up, I think I start this slideshow. Yeah, there we go. So this is a book I wrote, and I was out of college, and I was asked to lead the board of the college in a strategic session. And that strategic session was something they'd never really done openly before, but they had a really definite method of learning by doing. And they were training students to become engineers and artists in animated films and in um, games, in video games. And so I started by drawing on the board old school, and that's lecture, test, and grades, and new school, which is hackathons and finding your place on a team and working collaboratively to generate something that you're proud of. And so that co-authors here include the president of the school, Deb Snyder, and John Seeley Brown, who was um, he was the head of Xerox PARC. So the idea that I'm sitting here doing things with somebody who's that qualified is sort of spectacular. It's amazing. Let me get
Absolutely, it
my.
is. Yeah.
So what I'll do in talking through this is try and sort of, as my dad used to say, deal with my checkered career. And so I came up with an idea last night, which was built from John Seeley Brown, who's the guy on the board in Xerox PARC and on the board of many places, scientist, and inspiration to me. He was talked about imagination. I did that old school, new school, and before we broke, he said, "Stop. I want you to write something on the board. I want you to write imagination." And last night, as I was preparing for this talk, I thought, well, it's not imagination sort of not active. What's the verb? And so I asked ChatGPT, excuse me, as I clear my drawing, and I go up, getting here. Okay. So I told it to use imaginate as a verb. Okay. And the idea is what would it mean if it were a word? And it came up with it's something in your mind. And I said, what if we had tools to show, not just tell? As in everything in TikTok is an imagination. Everything we're doing right now, every gesture, every word, we are exhibiting, we are imaginating. And they came back and said, in that, that's an interesting thing. So ChatGPT approves of this method. And so let's go into more of where I got started. This is me in college. I'm the guy hanging out of that boat, and I'm over there. And that's terrible form. That is just, I had been a basketball player in high school, and I talked myself onto the freshman team my first year and then got cut. So I went over to the crew team and they said, okay, jump in the boat. And I made it into the JV boat that year and we had a great year. But I was, it was just all, just, push, not technique for me. But in college, I did do some academic stuff, and I'm bringing up a book by Buckminster Fuller called The Untitled Epic Poem on the History of Industrialization. And that changed my life,
Okay.
where he basically took agrarian society, took so many years before it went to industrial society, so many years before it became an information society, and made a lot of sense to me. So I'm framing that in sort of a global way of looking at things. And another thing I learned was game theory. I really enjoyed looking at how poker and war are really games, and we see it today. So my first job out of college was hanging these babies. I worked for Procter and Gamble. I went around with a team that I'd hire out of the unemployment lines of various cities. We hung about 1 million over a year. And I learned something at P&G, which was there was a triangle. And they had this on literature for us. Mass advertising creates mass markets that enable mass production. In other words, you could create one brand, Tide, or, you know, uh, Ivory soap, and you can make it the best in the world and everybody would buy it if you had enough advertising to show them how and you had enough promotion like what we're doing, giving away free samples. And I didn't like that. I'd had Buckminster Fuller in my head saying, no, mass customization, mass ingenuity, special interest, focusing things for the individual. So this job of going door to door, and that's of course ChatGPT generating an image for me, that's what they were to do. And I had to go to the bank, I had to go to the warehouse, I had to drive the truck and give them boxes filled with 30 of those and walk them through. And they all hung those on door to door. But I knew that's not what I wanted to do.
Okay.
What I wanted to do came about from a guy who left P&G the same time I did and said he went out on a job interview and said, it's not for me, but it's perfect for you. It's a college textbook publisher and they're looking for field reps. I went, oh, okay, what's that all about? And so I researched and I found out that every college professor has a different take on the subject matter and they want to write a book about it. And they want students around the country or the world to learn it the way they learn it. And we found that we could sell Intro to Marketing for Harvard, Intro to Marketing for Evergreen Community, for Montana State, different books, different levels of rigor, different kinds of examples. And I loved meeting with these people and learning about, oh, you do pottery. I could sell books. I have an editor who's looking for glazes, a book on glazes. Would you be interested in doing that? Oh, yeah, I could write a book on glazes. And I'd get them to write the book. And I got promoted. I got promoted into um, their headquarters in order to run, as a product manager, a whole line of books. And this was a day when, this electric typewriter was just invented. They had this little ball that went around and you could actually put fonts on it and people could type it and make it sort of into a student guide or whatnot. But this guy down at the bottom, he's somebody I met. They wanted me to do books on computers. Go find out, see if you can get people to write books on it. And I started finding these guys in various places like University of Texas, El Paso. This guy was at TI in Dallas, and he said, I looked at him and he had what that picture looks like. I said, "What's that?" He said, "That's a Wang word processor." And I said, "I know what that is, but what's that little box down below?" And he said, "That's a that no." He said, "I'm sorry. That is a worldwide telecommunication network." And I went, uh, so what does that mean? Well, we have manufacturing plants in Singapore and Frankfurt, and we change any process, we change any documentation, we put it on our network, and they can change the way they make things around the world. And then
Wow.
he said, and if you come to my house, I'll show you how a Radio Shack TRS-80 can interface to a digital typesetter and make books. And so that basically is my
Wow.
story of, learning about computers. That's where I got started.
Wow. Well, the very next question is, what should new users of CueCam Presenter know to get started? And I mean, make sure the audience understands everything that John just shared, he did through CueCam. But
Yeah.
this is the question. What should new users of CueCam Presenter know to get started?
Well, you don't need to know anything. The reality is that the tools you have in your pocket and on your desk can now do television studio quality stuff. So this is now not even prosumer. This is consumer stuff. We can thank TikTok. We can thank all sorts of different things. And I can go through my learning curve of the quality that's terrible to what it can be today. And, from my standpoint, let me just get, so we're here.
Just to make
Um,
sure that people understand what you're saying,
yeah,
let's break it down a little further. So you said things that people have in their pockets or things that people have around. Let's talk about those things that people have around. That
all
could
right.
be
So here's your iPhone. The camera on that iPhone, unbelievable. I have a Macintosh and I have an iPad. Fantastic. I'm actually using a Osmo Pocket 3 as this camera, but I'm using another iPad as my monitor so I can see you. I talk into the monitor and it's all within arm's length. And I don't need to yell. This is a DJI Mic Mini, 150 bucks for each of these. I mean, the camera might be 500, but not the thousands of dollars that are required for broadcast in the old school. And so this is going into Mimo Live, which is a broadcast replacement itself, of eCam, Mimo, vMix, ATEM switchers, and Grass Valley, whatever. You can now feed all of that with the tool set that I have in front of me.
okay. So what else should new users know?
Well, I think the surprising thing to me is how intimate it is, from the standpoint that I'm almost whispering, you know, the mic is right here, getting good sound. Um, the monitor is not even arm's length out, and the camera is where a microphone might used to be. It's not these big focal length, behemoths required. It's very simply a matter of putting together lighting, sound, and now you have something you can share. And the thing I wanted to share, and I sort of gave it away earlier, is I talked about imagination earlier.
Hmm.
Um, w- I just finished a Rotary meeting this morning. I run the AV, or I'm with the AV group there. And the speaker was all over the place, talking, gesticulating. And I realized when you're in person live, that's the way you imaginate. Like I was putting my hands together. I do it too. She couldn't help herself. She had to move around, and we were tearing our hair trying to keep up with her with a camera because we're not only showing things in the room, we're showing them out on Zoom. But the point is that she was imaginating using gestures. And in that environment of the Rotary Club, when the pandemic hit, somebody came to me, the president did, and said, "Can you be our Zoom driver?" And I said, "Sure, why not?" Right. And after a year, whatever lockdown, we realize people aren't all going to flood back into our meeting room. There are people who want to be at home, and we're going to need to have video to them. And I started investigating with some others, and really office hours was a big part of that, sort of looking at what's the state of play to be able to bring high quality presentations out to our members some of them had moved, but they wanted to be in touch. And what we end up with is a hybrid production that we then, have on YouTube. So we create a whole YouTube channel. So the idea of to imaginate is not to present, but when you're on Zoom, you need to bring graphics in. You need to bring images in with the talking head that's on Zoom. And I watch office hours a lot and I say, they're just talking. And they all have these tools to be able to play with. And I can show you what these tools look like. Let me see here. So that is the presentation that I put together. It's a bunch of whatever you want to call it, cards, cue cards that I put different pictures on. That one, different parts of my career. This was going through and finding things. I was pulled into Apple. They wanted somebody who knew technology from the publishing industry. They went around to all the New York publishers and they found me and they thought they were getting somebody New York blue blood. Uh, I I went to high school just down the street from Steve Jobs and Wozniak. I was in Los Altos, they were in Homestead. So I think they hired me because I could speak the language, basically. But the point is that I just drag these images into these card decks. And when I play that card, it comes up. It's,
Yes.
let me get out of, there we go. I was in demo mode. So the idea of in fact, when I was at Apple, it was uh, the Apple IIe. We launched these, the IIe, the 2C, the Lisa, the Macintosh. And I was in charge of working with publishers to get them to write books and learning materials and software. And the Macintosh came along and it was about desktop publishing. And then there was a woman there who was a Stanford MBA, really bright, and she got a new position made around desktop presentations using something called PowerPoint. And I went and chatted with her and Mando, what is it? Where's this play? What's that all about? And I was very impressed with the idea that we could present something onto a screen rather than putting foils onto a projector, right? But where we are now is the next turn of that screw, where not only is the presenter on screen, but what is being presented is right next to them. In other words, what CueCam is doing right now is it's giving me equal weight to what I want you to see. I'm in control. I'm not a little, let me share my screen and then takes over and I'm down in the corner. No, I can put this into a place where I'm in control.
I want to interrupt you for a quick second and just say to educators, please take a look at this. You can play with CueCam Presenter free, and you can play with it. And then if you think that you are very interested in it, you definitely can purchase it. There is an educator's pricing as well. So educators, trainers, I am blown away. And I also want to say to houses of worship, this is something that you might want to think about in terms of your presentation, in terms of your, if you are doing hybrid worship services, this is definitely something that you might want to utilize in the sanctuary as well as for those who are participating online or in Zoom, virtual settings. I'm sorry, John, for interrupting you, but I just wanted to make the point that, this is a graduation from PowerPoint. And I just want people to be aware of it. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please continue.
Well, and I think that's really astute. It's graduation and it's not a presentation anymore. It's an imagination. I am imaging what I'm speaking about, and I feel so comfortable because of it. I'm looking at a book that while I was at Apple, this guy came out of nowhere and said, I am using Mac Paint and the image writer to create images. And he had a, um, a Zen master coming out of a pool of water with his finger in the air. And it was all pixel by pixel. And I
Wow.
said, whoa, can you make a book out of that? And he said, okay. And he did. And the images on this are just staggering. He got a laser writer, so he upgraded. But Michael Green is down there and he's sort of looking at, that's what about in the future when the Macintosh is really old? What's it going to look like? He's doing things like that, which I just find fascinating. And he goes
And
into,
audience, if you
yeah,
if you, I want you to know that what John just did was he slipped in that red arrow demonstrating what he was illustrating. So that is something that you can do with QCAM. I'm sorry, John. I just I just wanted to make sure people were aware.
yeah, so this is my interface to what I'm managing. I'm managing this all through what's called Video Pencil, and it allows me to go to my next slide. It allows me to go back. It allows me to set aside so that I'm here and it's down there. I can bring it back up and basically draw. That's me. That's what I'm presenting. And that control has been missing from, I've got a upstream key. I've got to figure out, whatever I'm doing, how do I manage my production? Well, now you have a way to just do it with the tools that you already have. And I can go on. Would you like that?
Yes, please.
So after leaving Apple, Apple contracted. They take the Apple II division and the Macintosh division and slam them together, and half people have to go. And I was one of those that had to go. But they immediately called and said, "Hey, John, we've got a software group that we can't publish. Can you help them out?" Right. And so I started doing freelance marketing. And I got involved with this group at Supermax Software and I pitched them the idea, why not use a book publishing model? So instead of paying your developers cash, pay them in royalties. That's how books work. And they said, write us a business plan. Here's a Mac, get started on Monday. So we did. We signed up developers, and the pixel paint that's showing is, the most successful one. Over 10,000 of those went out in the first month because people wanted the color Mac, and this was the first paint program on the Mac that did color. And in that process, they had another tool. I was product manager on that. Then I went into another product that was a data product. And this was a time where this is a telebit modem, and that's like 19.2. And people had stacks of modems in their bedrooms, typically at much lower baud rates. And those modems allowed them to run BBSs. And BBSs were a thing. I could see that. And as I talked to people at Telebit, they said, oh no, we can do Usenet, where a whole discussion that's on one machine is going to get transferred to another machine. And what's that? And this is not internet really, but it's close. And in the process of working with that, I ran into people at Dow Jones, and they knew what they were doing. These are the people who put in a remote printing plant just up the street from where I am now in Palo Alto by satellite. They would put the Wall Street Journal over satellite and then with a blue laser print that Wall Street Journal on the West Coast so they could distribute more efficiently
Wow.
across country. And
And
they wanted
what
some,
year was that, John?
oh boy, okay, so we're talking about 1985 to 89. I was with Dow Jones.
Okay.
And they took me everywhere. They wanted a man in Silicon Valley who would, set up meetings. And they'd send out their vice president level people, and I would meet with Larry Ellison and Mark Benioff. Mark Benioff saying, Larry Ellison meets with us and then says, you need to leave the room because I'm not Dow Jones, I'm John Duhring, independent. Why don't you meet with Mark? He's got a PC product you might be interested in. And there's Mark Benioff with a box of something that hadn't shipped yet that's Oracle for the PC. And he's telling me why PCs running databases make all sorts of sense and all that stuff. It was like gold-plated calling card, right? To do that. And one of the meetings we had was at Apple. And while at Apple, once again, back to Apple, the program manager there for their online services looked at my card and says, this doesn't say Dow Jones. Can I talk to you? And, and, and the VP says, yeah, go ahead. Charlie Brady, wonderful guy. And he says, Steve Jobs just blew up our Apple Link Home Edition. Our people have got their nose down. Do you think there's a way we can use our Apple Link tool set? And I said, why not put in a publishing model? You have your partners like Microsoft, Farallon, whatever, put their documentation into your online repository and enable your partners and your dealers to get up-to-date information. And they did, and it worked. It wasn't a raging success, but it made use of they had a network of GEIS mainframe-based X.25, networks. But at the same time, they had internet going into every desk inside Apple by that time. And what that ended up being for me was this idea of building channel systems. Peter Solvik was the big boss of the Apple Inc. team. He went on to be the chief technical officer at Cisco. And they had me do a job where I was to ask how people use online services. And I was to ask IBM, DEC, Sun, Dell, Microsoft, Adobe, maybe there's a couple more. And what I found was everybody had a different use. IBM used online services to diagnose their mainframes, and they could send a technician in before it fails, saying, your hard disk is beginning to fail. We're going to fix it so you don't have any downtime, right? DEC says, no, our mini computers have an online store. So if you want printer ribbons or another, mini computer, online store, that's what you want it for. Microsoft said, our developers are our whole lifeblood. If you're just off the street, you can search our database. If you're a partner like Dell, we'll have somebody on you in 20 minutes. You post something in, you've got preferential treatment. So I started saying, whoa, these are all so different. It's like the elephant, and they're all different things. And then I asked Sun, how do you, use online services? And they said, our systems come with a network. And I said, what network? They said, the network, the internet. I went, what? And they basically said, we do all of those things. All of those things, all of our customers, we're already there. So that basically made me find out about the internet. And through that, I was introduced by a guy named Brewster Kahle, who was with Thinking Machines, where they had massively parallel processing supercomputers to do search engine stuff. And he had built a freeware, open source search engine that could run on a Sun machine, and you could run an app on your Mac. And I said, we could start a business. He said, I'm starting a business. So I joined him. And we ended up having a rocket ride and sold to AOL and stayed in AOL for a little while and whatnot. But, you know, through all of this was this idea of the internet being a huge advance and very exciting. And it enabled me to then start branching out sort of on my own. And one of the things I found is in working with another startup is this idea of a high intensity visual environment. So this was British Petroleum. And it's like what you see there is a hut, and inside are projections of video. But as you walk inside, it's all live, and somebody can manipulate a machine that's in Saudi Arabia. Or, as they told us, that they could have a PhD in um, in Houston, and the oil wells in Alaska, and instead of sending the PhD to Alaska, they could drop a video camera down the oil well, and they could diagnose how do you increase the yield from that oil well. And they did the same thing out of London with uh, oil drilling in Nigeria. In the next foot, how should I change the blade? And they could manage that from London, but it was getting video telemetry live. And they said, look, the most valuable data is video. So
Wow.
that's when I went,
You're
oh,
blowing me away. So when what are we talking about? What time frame is this? Because this is information that most people, I can speak for myself, most people don't know. So what's the time frame for this?
well, we started with Waze. Our first customer was the Perot presidential campaign. So it's Perot Systems and saying, hey, we can put all your press releases, position statements into a searchable database, and anybody in your field organization can find out how to respond, you know. And it took forever for those guys to go, wait a second, that some machine under the desk, that's the server. You go, yeah. And they had all these escalation. You're going to build this stuff, then you're going to put it on a sandbox environment, then you're going to, DevOps it into production. No, put it into production. So that was, I think, 92. I think by 95, 96, no, it'd probably be 98, the British Petroleum thing came around. And I thought, oh, so my next step was to say, who do I know where I can help? And I basically went to Stanford, which is right next door here. And I knew from Apple, they have this Stanford Professional Publishing Program, which was really in-service training for mid-career professionals in the publishing magazine and books. And they would come for a week at Stanford and learn about the future. And I went, you need video. And, you know, that basically was the start of um, really exploring, not knowing anything, believe me, not knowing anything. But there was a guy, and there's a tie into office hours, a guy named Kenji Kato, who was part of Pixel Core. And he was on our team, greatest developer, explainer, demoer that I've ever seen. And he basically said, I can do an intro to our videos. And he produced this. And I hope that the sound comes through.
I think our audience
Making
is
the 12-part
okay.
grid translates directly from print to the web. So as far as organizing your content, you want to start, with a grid.
Okay. So that idea of, being able to bring blue blood publishers into the web, that was what Stanford wanted to do. And we became their new media team. And we did things at Harvard, we did things in New York City, we trained people on how to do video, like what I just showed. And we're using really low-end DV and HDV cameras. And but his motion graphics, Kenji was the star. The sound, the graphics, high quality, and he always talked about Pixel Core, and he even taught for a while in Rwanda, and doing just remarkable things. So I'll take a break if you want to ask
Sure,
questions.
sure.
Yeah.
So our next question is, why should educators and trainers embrace CueCam Presenter?
Mm, it doesn't get in the way. So you ask, why am I so prolific? And the reason is that for me, I'd rather do this than write a memo. I get in a 2-minute recording, I can show and tell and get my point across more easily and with less time than crafting a well thought out memo. So it's really simple. You want to be more productive, you want to be more effective, and you don't want to get in the way. So I don't have to ask for permission on Zoom to share my screen or anything. I can go between apps. I can create an outline for what I want to say, and I can just follow it. And it's all sitting there in my back pocket. And for me, what I did with discovering CueCam is you discover Michael Forrest. Here's a guy who's a musician. He's a technologist. No, he's a polymath. No, he's got all these ingredients. and started focusing him a little bit. I said, I want 3 camera angles. I want a face, I want over the shoulder, and I want to see my screen, my desktop. He had something that did outlines, and here's how to structure a talk, and it's all text. And he built those things. And we just got on a roll with feedback, and he's on Discord all the time. He listens to people. We've got some new people in there who are saying, and I needed to do 4K video. Okay, now it's in there. You know, he's very responsive, and it's a work in process. But I think educator, someone in a religious environment, someone who wants to share stories, you know, this is a storytelling, imaginating tool.
I think one of the best ways that people learn is through storytelling. And so the fact that you mentioned that Michael, well, let me just say this: Michael Forrest is amazing in terms of I got to know him over the last 3 or 4 years, and um, I am amazed that the idea of even writing on video is blowing me away. And there are some other software packages that are allowing you to write on video, but nothing like what Michael has presented to us. And I just think it's absolutely amazing. And so um, Michael was on a few weeks ago, and he shared his product, and I had to have John on so that we could reinforce the importance of this tool in the storytelling for educators and trainers. And also, I want to add to the list houses of worship. I think this is a fantastic tool, and I think that regardless to what religion you might be, this is a way in which you can tell the story of your faith. So please consider. I am not a paid sponsor of CueCam. I am not a person who is benefiting financially from CueCam. I am a user, a paid user of CueCam, and I believe in this product. Um, and so I think that it is a tool that trainers, educators, anybody who wants to do storytelling should take and put in their pocket. Um, uh, Time was running out for us, John, but I was just wondering if you could just do a real quick demo on something real simple for us before we go to our last few questions.
Oh my. Um, I could show you, we did sports. We did some papers about hackathons. And oh boy, this might go a little long, but we were asked about how we did education a little differently by building open source tools that students could get around the world. If you can bear with me, I'm sorry, before we get there, that's John Seeley Brown meeting with a bunch of students. And I just walked in with my camera, and I had asked him beforehand, is it okay if I get some video? And he said, it's really important that you asked. And that started the relationship. But he walked into this meeting where it was a game development club. They build games, and he interviewed them. And I caught some video and I put it up online, and it's still up there today. And they said, we want more of that. And so, from an education standpoint, I'd say not so much teaching the subject matter, but capturing the students telling you what they are working on. So, I did a setup where I say, I want to see outstanding work where you find a student who's done something special, bring them to me. I haven't talked to them at all, and I'll get the mic on them and the camera on them, and I'll say, where did you come from? And they'll tell me a story. Then I'll say, what are you working on now? And they'll tell me a story. And then I'll say, those are so different. What happened? What got you from there to there? And they'll show me. And from those little bits, I got little 5-minute pieces again and again and again. Every student has a story, and I'd even say they have their own course, that you might be giving a course, but they're taking their own course. And the more you can get them to imaginate their course, to be able to show you what they're doing, to be able to share, then you're in a place where they can get feedback, you can adjust.
Fantastic. Are there any additional projects that you can talk about?
You know what? I'm retired. I manage a piece of property. Um, I do this as fun. And I'm happy to talk about it to anybody. I mean, from the standpoint that I have saying, uh, saying, what should I use? How can I go find all the videos I've created on the internet? And I use AI now increasingly agentically to, Manus tell me where all of Kempton Azuno's videos are from his soaring glider training. And it comes back after an hour with here's a whole list and a table with the URLs. I mean, there's so much on the research side of things that having this ability to show it. And then what I'll do is I'll say, look what I did, create a video of it. Here's the link to where you can now use the tool or the artifact that I've created for you. Boom, there you are. That's a business. And if I were in another place in my life, that's what I'd be. Hey, look, I can go. You want a better website? I'll go get what AI would say to do, and I'll give you all the stuff that they say you might want to do, and you don't have to lift a finger. I mean, the reality is that the tool set is that powerful, and we're just getting started. This is a very exciting time.
Thank you so much for that. Um, you're speaking to the world. Well, before I even ask you this last question, I just want to tell you that I'm hearing John Idelson in my ear. You are like him, failing in retirement. You, you are failing.
Absolutely.
You are failing in retirement, like Dr. Idelson.
Well, I'll
You're
show you. I'm showing on my screen the San Jose Rotary Club, where, we just had a meeting today. Every week, we're publishing all of our videos, all of our meetings. And this one over here, this crazy camera, that is an iPhone. That that came out of CueCam that we're running with every week. And once again, I said we need a roving camera. And Michael basically made it so that we could have the best quality coming out of CueCam with Shoot, his webcam. So it's Shoot on the iPhone or the iPad as a webcam and a monitor. So I'm looking at you right now and the Zoom call on my monitor. And I'm using the Osmo as my camera actually, but he's got the Shoot, he's got Video Pencil, and he's got CueCam. They all work together because he's gone down to the TCP/IP level as far as moving bits. And he's not afraid to go down to metal, go down to C programming. He's not just building at the top end. He's very quick in what he's able to do. And I think the responsiveness that you get is going to be surprising. And I think the quality is what is, it's improved like dramatically. And right now it's like, absolutely, get started, go. It's only going to get better.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I just want to let everyone know that if you like the way in which I look, I'm using an iPhone. I'm using an iPhone as my camera. So this is a 3-year-old iPhone that I'm using as my camera. So I just wanted to let everybody know that. And I have used, for years, I use the Shoot app as my primary camera. I'm not using the Shoot app, being transparent. I'm not using the Shoot app tonight, but I have used the Shoot app as my camera on an iPhone for years. And so I just want to let everybody know that. So this is the last question, John. You're speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
Imaginate. That's one
Imaginate.
word, imaginate. Don't present, show images. Show, don't just tell.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate
It's a
you.
pleasure.
I
Oh,
appreciate you being here with me. I appreciate um, you. You are prolific in the shorts, and I invite everyone to go to YouTube and look up CueCam Presenter. You can also go to the CueCam Presenter, which is on Squares TV. Um, Go to Squares TV, or you can look up CueCam Presenter on YouTube. And there you will see John almost produces two a day. I want to say almost two a
oh, come
day.
on. I'm ratcheting it down. I'm becoming more and more um selective in what I'm saying. And whereas first it was like, let's test every little bit. It was really quality assurance. Does this feature work? And I'd record something and Michael could see, oh, that's not what I want, or it is what I want. And so there was really an engineering kind of a feedback way of getting thoughts or, here's how I want to use it. Now it's more looking out at what people are asking me to do. And so someone asked me to do something, oh, I can make a video about that too. So I want to do more of those, bring in the requests. We'll do more.
Well, I want to say thank you so much because I am enjoying them. And I encourage everyone to check out John on YouTube, John Duhring doing QCam Presenter. They are very short videos, and they have a wealth of information in them. So please check them out. Again, thank you, John, for being with me.
My
Conversation with Tony
pleasure.
Mobley is produced by Value Audio Visual Professionals who meet daily on Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. We want to say thank you to Mimo Live. This conversation was powered by Mimo Live. We have conversations with real people. Stay tuned for new episodes and great conversations. Thank you, everyone, for the 100 plus conversations of Conversation with Tony Mobley. And when you have time, we ask that you look back and hopefully you might find something that you like, and hopefully it is helpful to you. We want to say again, thank you, John During, for being a part of this conversation today, for being the person who you are and doing the work that you do. Next week, we're going to have Miss Liberty White, Women in AI. She was on fire last March doing a women's AI event, and it was streamed. Part of it was streamed, part of it wasn't. It was an amazing event. It's on Facebook. We are going to have a follow up conversation next week with Liberty White in terms of women in AI. Please join us next week. YouTube, we have conversations on YouTube. We have conversation. We ask, when you watch us on YouTube, we ask that you like and subscribe to our conversations. And if you feel so, we ask you to donate to conversationwithtonymilby.com. And there are other ways that you can support us. We are also looking for people to work on the back end of Conversation with Tony Mobley. So if you have some time and you want to learn how to use Mimo Live, please join us. Reach out to us on our website, or you can find me in Discord on Conversations with Tony Mobley. Take care. God bless. See you soon. Bye bye.